like everyone's here. Wow, we have not just a quorum, we have all 5 commissioners here. So cool. Anything before we get started, Leah?
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay, so I'll call this meeting to order. Let me just bring up the right one. Okay. Before we get started, let's introduce everyone in this meeting. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me and verify that you are present. So I'll start with the commissioners. Travis,
I'm here.
Jonathan,
Present.
thank you. Amira,
Present.
Bill,
I'm here.
great. And then Leah,
I'm here.
is Jan here or is it?
She sure is.
I'm
She
here.
hides behind Grafton Land Use Department.
I wasn't quite sure if that was you or not, but that works. So thank you very much. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, as most recently extended on March 29th, 2023. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. This meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. This is done on the phone by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. During periods of public comment, participants must use the raise hand icon in the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. This is done on the phone by pressing *9 and then *6 to unmute when you are called upon. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time and will be promoted to speak. Finally, each vote will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the Commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside of this purview need to be addressed to the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the Select Board. Traffic concerns must be addressed with the Planning Board. All right. Yeah. So the first public meeting, you upped it to 7:10. Very
Jan's
nice.
idea.
Very nice. So let's jump to the action items. We request for certificate of compliance, another partial one. Want to just give us the update on that?
Yeah, this is Meadow Lane. I think the name of the subdivision was Fieldstone Farms, I think. It's a pretty old one, and this is just an individual lot that needs clearance from the larger order of the subdivision, because that's how they did them back then. Construction's done. The site is stable for this house. We had some replication for the subdivision and some stormwater infrastructure, but none of it pertains to this lot. So I'm good with issuing a partial specifically for 46 Meadow Lane.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions or comments on this, or any questions just on the process? So I'll just go around. Jonathan.
Nope, no questions. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep. Travis.
No questions.
Amira.
No questions.
Bill. Any questions?
No, none from me.
Okay, neither do I. Having seen there's no questions or anything on this particular certificate of compliance, do I have a motion?
I'll move to issue a partial COC for 46 Meadow Lane.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Amira.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes. It's a unanimous vote. We haven't had one of those in a while, since we haven't had 5 people in a while. So that's great. All right. Next up, Leah, the meeting minutes.
Yeah, we're just gonna have May tonight. Jack's still polishing up June and July, so we just
Okay.
have May 28, 2024.
Okay. And remind me again, why we had to, did we just miss the May 28th one, or was it?
We're behind on minutes. May would be the oldest, but around April probably last year was when we started to get slammed with all those giant
All the big ones.
applications.
Yep. Thank you.
We let meeting minutes slide between the giant applications and our efforts to publish trail maps. So we are now catching up. We have May basically through the end of 2024 to get back to being caught up.
Okay, sounds good. I did read through it. So does anyone, I'll do a little roll call. Does anyone have any questions or comments on those? And again, if you weren't around for that meeting, you can still vote on it because it's really just meeting minutes and you can comment on that or you can abstain from that. So Travis, any questions?
Nope.
Jonathan,
Nope. Okay.
Amira,
No questions.
and Bill?
No questions. I'll abstain because I don't know what's going on in this.
Okay, so when we go around and do the vote, I'll just ask you and then you just tell me you abstain and that's fine.
Okay.
No problem at all. Do I have a motion?
Oh, I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from May 28th, 2024.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Is that the right date? Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Amira,
Abstain.
and then Bill.
Abstain.
I am a yes. The motion carries. Okay. Next up. Anything next up?
Not really. We just gotta wait a couple minutes for the hearing.
2 minutes. Yep.
Now we know, Leah, you set the time for 7:08 p.m., not 7:10 p.m., right? Or Jan's masterminding that, right?
Hey, all I can say is, Jan, thank you. Jan, thank you for 5 minutes of my life back. So thank you.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're just going to sit here and stare at each other and make, kind
Talk
of
about
mind.
how cold it's out, right?
Yes. And how
What is-
windy it was.
What is the meeting that we're waiting for?
It's a public hearing, so it's a public hearing at a date certain and time certain. So when you have a public hearing, not a continuance, but this is the first public hearing, you have to keep it to whatever time it's publicated in, I don't know, it's on the website, it's posted at town hall, and it's probably in some small newspaper. So it's one of those things where that's a date certain and a time certain. So I sit here and I watch the clock and it's 7:09 and we can't start till 7:10.
And what is the purpose of the meeting?
This is for a notice of intent. So it's work being done, I think close to, I looked at the plans earlier, close to our wetlands, and we'll go through it. We'll have a presentation by the applicant, and then we'll go and deliberate and ask questions and so forth, and we'll see where we get when we get there. So once 7:10 hits, I'm kind of babbling. Once 7:10 hits, I will actually read. I'll actually read into the record, opening it up. There's a certain process we go when we open public hearings, so I'll do that. So, but I'm just waiting for 7:10.
And it technically, so Bill, it can start at if we were talking about previous items, or if there was like 2 back-to-back meetings, then we could, the meeting can start after 7:10, but as long as it can't start before 7:10. And now it's
Right.
7:10.
There you go. And that's because if the public is here, or whether they're online listening or in person when we had in person, then they won't miss anything. They may have to wait for it to start, but they'll be there. So it's about making sure the public has the opportunity. So now saying that it's 7:10, as Jonathan mentioned. So pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon notices of intents, applications for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw, and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of PFAS treatment plants at 77R Snow Road and 98 Worcester Street. And then what I'll do now is I'll ask for the applicant's representative to give us a little bit of a overview of what these 2 notice of intents are. So
Evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
hear you absolutely fine. You have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Isabel Arthen Long. I'm a project environmental scientist with Ty and Bond. Also here today from Ty and Bond are Timothy Grace and Amber Bowles, our project manager Amber, and Tim, who designed the stormwater and civil plans. Also attending is David Erickson from the Grafton Water District. So, Jan, I don't know if you saw, I sent you over a couple presentations we pulled together. I didn't realize we wouldn't have screen sharing privileges. If it works to pull them up, that's great. Otherwise, I can just chat with you all.
Is it one presentation? I just got the East Street one.
It should be, there's East Street and Worcester Street and 2 separate emails since the files were too big. I can also just,
Yeah, we will not allow you to share. It's a
Right.
standard practice, and anything that we can pull up, any plans, anything that has been submitted to us, we'll pull up. And
sure,
again, we can start with the off of East Street to, just because we have that one in hand.
that works. So, while Jan is pulling those up, I'll just give you an orientation. It's a little bit unusual to, discuss 2 notices of intent in one hearing, but these are 2 sort of sister projects, or under really the same umbrella to construct 2 new water treatment plants within Grafton to treat elevated PFAS concentrations within the district's water supply. So, there we go. Great timing. Hasn't popped up yet for me. Excellent. I think we can just jump down to the project location slide since we've taken care of introductions here. What you just saw is an image of existing infrastructure, an existing treatment plant on this parcel. So it's a little confusing. The parcel is located at 77 Rear Snow Road in Grafton, but it's referred to as the East Street well site in all water district communications and reports. The entrance to the site is off of East Street. So you can see the project location here. As I mentioned, it's located on existing water supply land that hosts 2 active groundwater supply wells, as well as a water treatment facility. It's adjacent to wetlands that are associated with the Quinsigamond River. So those are the wetlands you see surrounding the parcel here. Can move to the next. A little bit of project background. The Grafton Water District is supplied by 5 groundwater supply wells, 2 of which are located at East Street. And PFAS concentrations measured in this well, in these 2 wells, has been measured between 10 and 20 parts per trillion. Until 2004, these concentrations were below the maximum contaminant limits for PFAS. But last year, the EPA lowered these limits to 4 parts per trillion. So in order to remain in compliance with drinking water quality standards, the district either needs to treat for PFAS to lower those concentrations, or would be forced to take those wells exceeding 4 parts per trillion offline, which would then impact their ability to provide sufficient water to meet their water supply demand.
Could you just give a very brief description of what PFAS is and why it's important that it's being removed?
Sure. So these are persistent chemicals that have become very widespread in our environment and particularly in water. Certainly not an expert, but they're chemicals that are found in many different products that we use. They're found in the linings of freezer boxes and takeout containers, found in detergents, found in all sorts of materials, and they've accumulated within our water supplies. And there's a lot of research going on now into, the long-term effects of exposure to these compounds.
Thank you. That's really,
Great.
it's the forever chemical.
Yes. So reducing the amount of PFAS within the water supply, and then in turn, removing it from the water system, is a goal of this project in order to provide a reliable and high quality water supply to the district's customers. So you can head on to the next slide. And all of the photos that you're seeing here of the East Street site, that last photo was of one of the active wells. This is showing the current access to the site. To the right, you'll see a mode area that is proposed to be developed as a stormwater management area, but we'll get into the plans in just a couple minutes. So the scope of the work is to construct a new PFAS water treatment facility at the East Street location. Associated with that, we'll be constructing a new stormwater management system that's sized in order to mitigate all of the increase proposed of impervious area. And the EPA maximum contaminant limits will be reduced below that threshold of 4 parts per trillion as a result of the new treatment. The anticipated schedule, the site plan is just about complete, and we'll talk about that when we go through the plan set. But final facility design, the interior of the facility and bidding the project to a contractor is expected to continue through September. We'll be awarding in the fall and expect construction to begin in early 2026, pending weather conditions, and expect it to construction to last through 2027 and end early in the year in 2028. So let's move on to the plans here. We supplied plans to you all. I hope that you've been able to review them. Some I have wetland resource areas shown on this slide just to orient you to the site. The bright green is the furthest extent of the 100-foot buffer zone. So you can see that the 100-foot buffer extends into most of the project site. The yellow line is the furthest extent of the 25-foot buffer zone. The pink line shows the limits of 100-year flooding at the site. Teal down there in the corner shows riverfront area, and this bold dashed line shows our limit of disturbance. So you can see that the 25-foot buffer sort of hugs that limit of work in some areas. On this sheet, the hatched areas show the extent of clearing and grubbing, and also the saw cutting of the existing paved access to the site, which will be repaved. It also shows a staging and stockpile area. Can you all see my cursor moving? No, okay. A staging and stockpile area just sort of at the northern tip of that of the buffer zone green line. This sheet also shows some existing infrastructure that would be replaced on site. So you can move to the next one. So things to draw your attention to here, you can see around, just around the limit of work is going to be our proposed new tree line. And along that limit of work, you can also see the placed erosion controls. The footprint of the water treatment plant is shown in dark gray. It's located just approximately 36 feet from the existing water treatment facility. And you can see in this sort of light gray, there's a new proposed paved area wrapping around 2 sides of the new water treatment plant and running and extending between the 2 facilities. And then in the back, there's a proposed gravel area to facilitate more site access and ancillary infrastructure. That will also reestablish a gravel access route to one of the existing wells. Can move to the next one. So this shows site grading that's proposed. Site grading is primarily proposed to manage stormwater at the site. the stormwater management system, which you can see to the right of the limit of work, has been designed to fully mitigate the increased impervious area that's proposed on the site, and also conform to the Massachusetts stormwater standards and the Grafton stormwater bylaw. A portion of this stormwater management system is located within bordering land subject to flooding, and that has been factored into the calculations of compensatory flood storage. There's a table showing compensatory flood storage up in the left-hand corner. You may or may not be able to read it there, but I hope you have access to the drawings on your own devices as well for reference. One more plan sheet to look at is just the utility plan. It shows new and replacement site utilities. Some of these utility installations will take place within existing paved areas and will meet the exemption criteria for utility maintenance under the Wetlands Protection Act. So those are utilities that we're running along the existing paved access that will be repaved, and other, parking and access areas. So speaking of impact, if you go to the next slide here, this table shows impacts that are anticipated to jurisdictional resource areas. This is the same table that was included in the notice of intent application, plus an additional column showing impacts proposed within the 25-foot no disturb zone over to the right. This area wasn't initially shown as extending from BLSF in the notice of intent, and so these have been updated to reflect those impacts. The 25-foot no disturb zone is located within the 100-foot buffer zone, so there's of course overlap between all of these impacts. And it's worth mentioning that all the impacts within the 20-foot no disturb zone are within the 25-foot buffer to BLSF, as opposed to any other resource area. We've got footnotes here for your reference, stating what portion of the utility installation activities are considered exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act, and a discussion of cubic feet of fill within BLSF. This note shows that there's going to be a net increase of 5,528 cubic feet of flood storage capacity, and an area of approximately 7,000 square feet of new BLSF as a result of the stormwater management system. So that is an overview of East Street. I don't know if you all want me to walk you through Worcester Street first and then discuss both projects, or if you'd prefer to discuss one and then the other.
So Leo, we should do one at a time because I have a series of questions and stuff. So,
did you say East Street or Snow Road?
The East Street facility is located at the address of that facility is 77 Rear Snow Road.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure I'm looking at the right.
Sure.
it just happens to be how the entrance comes off. So this is down the street from where I live, far enough away. I'm not in a butter, but I'm extremely familiar with it because during COVID, I walked that path every day for about 2 years. So I know all the infrastructure down there.
Well,
So-
great. Good to be
But
familiar.
anyways, yep. So Leah, should we just stay with this one, ask the questions here, or do you want us to?
I think I think that would be helpful because there are
Yeah.
some differences between the two, so I'm fine with that.
Okay. Do you want to give your report up front just to get it going? I have several questions.
Sure. So I listed the impacts to BLSF for you guys in my report, but it's just a bunch of numbers, so I don't need to read them off. They are seeking limited project status per 310 CMR 10.5330, which this would be expansion of the public water supply well. They have two waiver requests, one for exceeding 5,000 square feet of impacts, and another for the work proposed in the no disturb zone. One thing that I don't know if we need to walk through this now or maybe in the future, would be the DEP comments. I know you guys provided responses for Worcester Street. We haven't seen them yet for Snow Road. I don't know if you want to talk through them or if you want to wait till that document's provided. We could talk through them another time. But that's really the extent of what I have for Snow Road right now.
Okay. So I'll kind of start with a few questions. And so Jan, if you can go back to, I think it's the utility plan C103, I think it is.
105, I think, is the utility plan.
Go to 104. So, and these are just broad overall questions about, your approach to stormwater and what you are doing and so forth. And so, in some of them, I just have questions. So, the existing treatment plant stays; its function does not change, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're bringing in, you're doing some improvements to the existing access road. Then you're creating another road in between the two buildings, the existing building and the proposed building. And then behind the existing building, you have a gravel area with some tanks and so forth for backwashing and things like that. So my first question is, did you consider looking at this site because it's extremely tight and it's surrounded by wetlands and other wetland resources and so forth, and both on local and state. Did you consider looking at the areas that you're repaving and so forth to put porous pavement with some potential for infiltration of storage underneath it? Did you look at the area around those tanks and so forth, as you already have gravel there, as doing additional gravel and storage underneath that? That's all more elevated above um, the wetland areas, as opposed to putting in a basin that you're probably either in groundwater or touching it, and then maybe doing something minor there. Did you look at alternative ways and doing kind of green infrastructure in a very basic, efficient way?
Yeah, I will pass those questions over to Tim, who I don't think has panelist capabilities, so you may
Nope.
need.
I'm good. Can you
Okay.
hear me? Perfect.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess starting off with the green infrastructure. So as a matter of practice, we always try to do that, right? Because the more green infrastructure we can use, the smaller we can make our stormwater management facilities. The challenge with sites like this is, well, there's a few. The first one being we need to provide access around all four sides of the building. And that's largely driven by public safety, fire department type requirements. So in this case, we're using gravel wherever we can. And then the pavement that you see is actually the minimum we can get away with to still be able to get a truck in and out of there for deliveries. Porous pavement we really wanted to use. Unfortunately, especially up here in the Northeast, it's really hard to get a porous pavement system to last. And that's especially true on cases like this, where a site like this has high groundwater. So what you actually end up needing is a much thicker pavement section from, say, the top of the pavement to the bottom of the porous section to be able to provide not only the storage requirements short term, but then even for longevity. Because the problem with porous pavement is the freeze thaw action up here in the Northeast just destroys it if you're not giving it the adequate separation to groundwater. So that
Just on that point, I kind of disagree with that. Having designed a lot of porous pavement in both, whether it's East Coast or the Northeast, yeah, you have to design it correctly, but and there's a cost associated with it, but that cost can be mitigated by doing less site work.
True.
And there's also other ways of doing that, of putting, and again, it's all about on a site. I truly understand this is a constrained site. You're surrounded. So to me, it's about layering what you're doing and putting actual, functions in those areas. And so, no, you may not be able to totally get rid of that, fairly large detention basin on the, yeah, I don't see a north arrow. Where's the north arrow? It's up the page on the east side. Um, but if you're looking and you're doing these gravels, so I'm not making any kind of suggestion saying you can't have access around it. You shouldn't have those gravel paths and so forth. What I'm saying is, can you not add a function of stormwater to them? And are you including any of the voids in any of the detention and potential infiltration that in your drainage calcs?
Yeah, so we're definitely not including any of the void space in our drainage calcs now because, like I said, I mean, historically we've had poor luck with porous pavement on sites like this. I think when we did our test pits in the stormwater basin, groundwater was fairly high, and typically is like a company standard when we encounter groundwater that high. Again, this is just from our experience and the projects that we've designed and permitted before. The porous pavement systems, granted, acknowledging it could be from a number of factors, but we just overall have really poor luck utilizing porous pavements on sites like this, which is
And one of
why.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, which is why, when we find these high groundwater conditions and the particular soils that were out there, we typically, as a matter of practice, kind of rule that potential BMP out, just because of our experience using it.
Yeah. And have you ever considered here where you have, and again, the kind of the first thing is if it's trucks and it's turning, you have potential with the porous popping and so forth. The other thing is do a combination, and that is there's a lot of different ways of using things like grasscrete on edges where you
Mhm.
still have pavement, then that goes down underneath to a volume underneath it. So what you're doing is you're finding places to put volume of water. One thing that I should have asked ahead of time is just because I've walked down there so many times, I believe the existing site is the existing building slab on grade, right?
Correct. Yes,
And the proposed building's slab on grade.
correct.
Okay, so there's no lower, areas of building that you have to worry about as far as water getting into it. But so to me, it's just like, taking advantage of any surface that you have here where you can put a 12-inch pipe in whether it's just a storage area and then it all makes kind of doing, the other areas less. You don't have to get as close to the wetlands, those type of things. It's cheaper to do. It's an economic reason. Whenever you can do a layered function on different materials because you are using gravel. And again, there's a lot of different ways so that you can prevent it from clogging or you can actually put storage in there. And so I'm just asking those questions because, again, this is very constrained. We understand it's a water supply location, but it's also like trying to also protect the wetlands to see if we can make a little less impacts and so forth. So,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I guess I would just say based on the issues I brought up previously, and then you make a really good point about like the truck turning. That's a big one, especially on this site, because like I said, we have the bare minimum amount of pavement necessary to get a WB62 truck in there, backed in, turned around and out. And so the other big concern, I guess, would be delaminating on that pavement section. Recognizing that we're not putting a lot of extra there. We're kind of only giving ourselves enough to get that truck in and out of there. I just wonder how much porous pavement we could actually get in there.
you
And
really think you really think you can get a WB62 in there off of East Street?
I believe that's what we modeled. I said WB62. I might be wrong. It might be a 50.
Okay,
I
yeah.
could look, but
No. Again, it's very constrained. I don't know if you're doing any improvements to the gravel road on the way in. It's rutted, it's narrow, it's in at the end where it comes in off of East Street to get, yeah, that seems like a really excessively large vehicle for this particular type of location and use.
Yeah, and like I said, it might be. I might have misquoted. All I know is when I
Okay.
looked at the turning diagrams, we could barely get that thing in and out. And
Not a surprise.
yeah,
Not a
uh,
surprise. Okay. I guess what I'm trying to do is trying to, just from the perspective of protecting wetlands and not doing as much alteration. And again, it is what it is. It's not like it's you don't have the room to do enhanced landscaping and doing all of these different type of things. I get that, but just the idea of maybe layering some function may reduce the size. And obviously, this is Leah. This is being sent out for peer review or not?
Yeah, it's actually already been peer reviewed by Graves Engineering.
Yep.
Yep.
But again, it's really just a perspective of minimizing alterations of areas close to the wetlands.
Yep, nope, agreed. I will say the size of that basin is driven largely by the fact that we're trying to pick up as much pavement and impervious area out there as we possibly can to try to get it into that treatment train. Because right now there is somewhat of a stormwater management system, I would say. It's not a huge one or an extensive one, but we can always do a better job with that, right? So in this case, we're trying to pick up as much as we can to get it into that basin.
The series of puddles out there, yes.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's just really something to think about, and it's again, it's meeting the regulations to the greatest extent practical on this particular existing site and based on what it's for. There was just some of those things. The other thing is, and I was trying to look at your numbers, where is your fill for the floodplain? I was just looking at your numbers and I was looking more
Yeah.
specifically at the elevations.
So it's basically within the area of the existing roadway because we're regrading that entrance road in a tiny bit, and that's essentially all of the area that has impacts to BLSF, and it's just a function of trying to get the site graded in a manner that we can get that stormwater into those sediment forebays. So I guess I don't know what is north on this because there's no north there.
It's up the page. It's up the page.
So basically that northern piece of the access road that abuts the sediment forebays, that's basically where all that grading is happening and where all those
Okay.
comp storage calculations were taken from.
And that's what you're trying to do is get all of the pavement into there. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the depth of it. You're dropping 6 feet on, you don't even, you have a small, maybe not even a 6-inch, 1 foot, edge to your roadway and stuff. So it's tight,
Very tight.
which you understand. Okay. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Even if you can take advantage of some of the other, what you're doing on other parts of the site that could help you to maybe reduce that a little bit. And then, and again, I was just looking at this. Where is your mitigation for the floodplain?
So the mitigation, I believe, I'm trying to look at this screen, is that 309 contour right in that same area. I guess I'm going to say left of the drive and left of the sediment forebays, where we basically took the contours there and
Yep.
dragged them off to the left to provide more comp storage within that 309. Is it 309? I think it is 309.
Yep, it is 309.
Yep, within that 309 contour there, we're basically trying to create a depression in there to offset the fill directly
Right.
adjacent to it.
Yeah, because if it's floodplain that you're trying to mitigate, you have to do it by foot, and you don't have a 306 over there.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And it has to be continuous, and I don't see the overview and so forth, but it's wet all the way around there. So I'm sure you connect it well. Okay. That's kind of my takes, Leah, on this particular, as far as the stormwater system goes. I'll go around to the rest of the commissioners to see if they have any other questions and so forth. Travis.
So Leah or Jan, I'm looking through the file. Did we get the peer review back?
So that was initiated by the planning board, I believe. These projects
Okay.
went to them first, so I need to snag a copy of that from them. I can send it out to you
Okay.
guys tomorrow.
And did it go to the DEP?
We have DEP comments back and their file number. We don't have a response to those comments for Snow Road, but we do have a response to DEP comments for Worcester Street.
Okay.
We haven't
And then for
drafted a response letter to the DEP comments, but we have internally addressed them, and so we're prepared to, discuss any of those comments that you all would like to discuss.
Okay, so, and also, can you clarify the impacts are to the wetlands within the 25-foot buffer? You're not actually impacting wetland, is that correct?
Correct. The only actual resource area that's being directly impacted is bordering land subject to flooding. Otherwise, it's all within local and state buffer zones.
Okay, so the only mitigation would be for the borderland, BLSF.
Correct.
Okay, nothing else right now.
All right, great. Jonathan?
I didn't have any additional comments. Sandy, you laid out a lot of the stuff I was thinking about.
All right, great. Amira?
Nothing from me.
All right. And Bill?
Nothing from me.
All right, great. Leah, do we want to move on to the next one, or do we want to just look at the DEP comments just so that,
I think we should go through those comments first.
okay. If you want to bring that up, that would be great. So are the comments coming up?
Dan's working on it.
Figured she was.
Tim, I'll let you field most of these here since they're mostly related to stormwater.
So do you want to respond to, and again, you said you've already looked at these on how you're going to respond to them, and we can go through these.
Yes. Tim, do you want to jump in or shall I lay things out and you can add where you?
I'm trying to get into our response document right now, but I can't. Are you in it?
I am in it. I will close it.
Well, I was going to say, if you want, you can just read off the
Okay.
responses and
Great.
I'll jump in as necessary.
Great. So this first comment is about the range of base flood elevations that are shown within the project site. The FEMA panel shows a base flood elevation of 308.7 on the northern edge of the site at the railroad line, and then the same 308.7 to the south of the site. I will say, just for orientation, the project drawings were in a north-south orientation, so your north arrow is straight up. The 309 base flood elevation is shown through the center of our project site, and so that is what we use to delineate BLSF within the project site. The next question or comment is about demonstrating that we have avoided, minimized, and mitigated impacts to resource areas, the maximum extent practicable. We've discussed this some already, how constrained the site is. It has very limited usable space, and the existing and proposed water treatment plant buildings have to be located a minimum of 3 feet above the base flood elevation because they host critical utility infrastructure and they need to be protected. So locating the stormwater features in the upland areas is not feasible because it doesn't allow for runoff from the topographically lower areas of the site to be collected and treated by the stormwater system. The existing treatment plant and wells are going to remain active during and after the construction of the new PFAS treatment plant, and the site has very limited usable space outside of buffer zones. So that limits the options for locating both the stormwater system and the new water treatment facility building. So based on the numerous constraints that we've discussed, the only location that can support a stormwater management system is within that BLSF area on the eastern side of the project site. Their third comment was that the applicant should more clearly show on the plan where compensatory flood storage will be provided. Compensatory flood storage is within the area of the stormwater basin, and it extends along the 309 elevation on the northern edge of the driveway and into a low spot on the northwest side of the driveway. We intend to edit the plan set to more clearly define those boundaries on the drawings.
One quick question about having the basin as the flood compensation. How is it tied to the floodplain itself?
So it expands the existing area of floodplain. So it's a continuous, it'll be a continuous extension of existing floodplain. Does that answer your question?
No, because
Okay.
you have a 306 bottom, 307, 308, and they all circle each other.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we misspoke on that. Hence the reason this is a draft, right?
Okay.
I don't think our intent is to claim that the basin, like we talked about this a few minutes ago, the BLSF mitigation area is actually on the opposite side of the road.
Right.
It's
Okay.
not, yeah, it's not the
Okay.
basin itself. So we'll clarify that in the responses.
Yep.
Great. The fourth comment was asking us to show the location of the 10-year floodplain in relation to the basin. They said, should infiltration structures be located within the 10-year floodplain, the applicant should provide additional information on the efficacy of the stormwater management system for peak controls to meet standard 2, as the capacity will fill up before the peak arrives. So based on the flood insurance study report, the 10-year flood elevation across the site is 306.75. The existing elevation around the parcel is 308 and 309, is 308, and a 309 contour surrounds the project site. So although the interior of this 309 elevation will be changed, the outer boundary will remain the same, and a 10-year flood event, the flood waters from the Quinsigamond River shouldn't reach the stormwater management system because of the existing topography. Basically, we have a elevated, berm around the project site that would prevent those 10-year flood levels from entering the site at all. Comment number 5, the applicant should demonstrate how the stormwater management system will meet treatment and pre-treatment requirements of standard 4. The treatment and pre-treatment requirements are met through the use of 2 sediment forebays in series that settle out pollutants and provide 44% total suspended solids removal prior to discharge into the stormwater system.
Sorry, I'm just going to stop you real quick because the comment is saying that the basins are proposed to provide compensatory storage. And I think that's something that we probably just need to clarify with the reviewer, that we're not using the basin to provide the compensatory storage. We're using that other area that we discussed previously. So I guess void that response and we'll tweak that before we send it in, because it seems they just seem a little confused about what's being used for comp storage or thinking that the basins are. And in this case, we're not using them for that.
They probably didn't. It's the only place you see a 306 is in the basin.
Exactly. Yep. And so I guess I'll do number 6 since I'm already talking. The basin shown is within the 50-foot buffer zone. Infiltration BMPs must be set back a minimum of 50 feet from surface water. So what we're probably going to do, we've been calling this an infiltration basin. In reality, we're collecting everything. There's no outlet to said basin. So what it'll probably end up being is a bioretention area, and we're probably going to landscape it with, native vegetation, the plantings that are called out in the stormwater handbook. But I'm kind of the opinion it doesn't really matter what we're calling it because there's no outlet associated with it. We're capturing and detaining everything from the up to the 100-year storm event. So I guess moving forward, what we'll do is we'll turn it into a bioretention basin so that we can meet that 50-foot setback requirement, because there isn't one for bioretention.
And I would also say you put it just an emergency spillway in.
Yes.
And then, and that's why if you can take advantage of some of the gravel areas and take credit for it, and if you can bump up the bottom of it and you can make it a little bit more, because you don't really want a 3 foot deep bioretention,
Hmm.
and it's really about the bottom of it. So, and again, the only question would be, would you need to line it or not? Because you're not going to get the depth. So if you're doing it, you're trying to do it for treatment, then you just have to think about where the groundwater is, and if it's too high, you need your different layers to kind of go down through. So I mean, that would be a section through there, and if you did bioretention there, you may not need both of your forebays.
Yep.
So there's definitely some options there to look at, um, and a potential of not having to go as deep because you said you had done soil testing out there.
We did. We have to do more soil testing out there,
Okay.
but what we saw, we did 2 test pits and it was consistent material within both test pits. And they also matched what we were seeing on the soil survey and what we were seeing with the USGS surficial geology. So we basically ran with it, but because of the size of the basin, we're going to need to do more test pits to verify that material before construction.
And what's the soils?
It was a sandy loam above a sand. I hope I'm thinking about the right site. I can
That
check.
makes sense for a well area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so
but good material. Like I said, it coincided with all the
yeah.
federal data that we had. So, and that's actually number 7 is about the test pits appearing to be conducted within, 1 being conducted within the infiltration basin footprint. And test pits are required at the location of infiltration BMPs, 1 sample for every 5,000 square feet. So like I just said, we're gonna go back out there and do
Okay.
more test pits prior to construction just to verify everything.
Okay.
Number 8 was a detail on the separation from seasonal high groundwater should be provided for the infiltration basin. So yeah, we will call that level out on our infiltration basin, or dare I say bioretention basin detail that we'll provide on the updated plans. And then the last one was just the installation of underground utilities within BLSF are not eligible for the exemptions listed in 310 CMR 10.022B, as these only apply to activities occurring in the buffer zone or riverfront area. The applicant should quantify any BLSF alterations associated with this portion of the project. Compliance with 310 CMR 10.585 is discussed in the narrative. The applicant should clarify this. Isabel, I'm going to defer to you on that one.
Yeah, I can take this one. So BLSF, the impact associated with underground utility installation in BLSF was shown on the impact calculation table, broken out. It's 300 square feet. No exemption status was claimed for BLSF. Exemption status was claimed only for the 100-foot buffer zone. And finally, the citation she notes 310 CMR 10.585 is in reference to riverfront area, which this site does not have. We did include a discussion of 10.57, which is the performance standards for BLSF. And the total impacts to BLSF were discussed in that section, including all impacts associated with utility installation. So I think this may have been a misunderstanding on Rebecca's part. So we are aiming to write up those responses and send them over to you all and to DEP by the end of this week, so that you'll have time to consider them before the next meeting, and they can respond if they choose to as well.
So at this point, I'd like to just open this up to the public. If you have any questions on uh, this particular location for the new water treatment plant at the existing wells. This one is off of East Street, but it's actually at the rear of, I think, 77 Snow Road. So if anyone that's listening into this, if you have any comments or question, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to include you in the discussion. All right. Having seen no one at the moment, Jan, if you can just keep an eye on that, we can just move on to the other site. And yeah, and so we probably don't have that presentation, Jan, for
Getting it up now.
okay, great.
You will see, it will look familiar to you, I'll say. Great. So this water treatment plant is proposed at the 98 Worcester Street existing water supply land. You can see a photo of the existing pump station in this photo. If you go to the next slide, these are just, again, introductions to the project team, although you have become acquainted with us already. You can go on to the project location. What you see here is the red line is the project parcel, and the yellow line shows the limit of disturbance. And you can see that area in context in the topographic map. This site currently hosts one active groundwater supply well, as well as a water treatment facility, and is adjacent to wetlands that are associated with Axtell Brook. So it's the same story at Worcester Street as it is at East Street. The PFAS concentrations at Worcester Street have measured in that same range between 10 and 20 parts per trillion, which until last year have been in compliance with maximum contaminant limits. The intention of the project is the same to treat these PFAS levels to bring them below the new 4 parts per trillion maximum contaminant limit. This treatment plant will also have manganese and iron treatment to keep below those thresholds. So in addition to PFAS, it'll be treating for those metals. Great. So the scope of work is very similar here. We'll be constructing one new water treatment facility to treat for manganese, iron, and PFAS. It'll be just northeast of the existing treatment facility. Likewise, we'll be constructing a stormwater management system to mitigate the increase in impervious area. The schedule is the same. These are being treated as a single project for all other purposes. So they'll be on the same timeline. So here you can see our limit of disturbance again with that bold dashed line. The teal line again is riverfront area, which encompasses more of the project site in this location. The bright green line again is the furthest extent of the 100-foot buffer zone. The pale green line is the 50-foot buffer zone. The yellow line is the furthest extent of the 25-foot buffer zone. The pink line shows limits of 100-year flooding, so bordering land subject to flooding. And then there's a pale blue line there that shows the 100-foot riverfront area. I will also mention that the entire limit of disturbance at this site is located within mapped wood turtle habitat, which is listed as a species of special concern in Massachusetts. So again, on this sheet, if you just go back one, Jan, thank you. The hatched areas again show the limit of clearing and grubbing, as well as the saw cutting of this existing access road that will be repaved running through the center of the site. Okay, we can skip now. We do have a north arrow shown on this one, so it's pointing towards the top right corner of the screen. Again, you can see here the proposed new tree line just around the limit of disturbance, where there are also proposed erosion controls in place. The footprint of the new water treatment plant is located approximately 60 feet from the existing facility. And we have, again, paved access areas around 3 sides of this building, and then a gravel area up above it in this location in the rear of the building. Go on to the next, showing site grading at the site. Again, it's proposed primarily to manage stormwater at the site. And again, this stormwater system has been designed to fully mitigate the increased impervious area and comply with Massachusetts stormwater standards and local bylaw. Okay. Look at site utilities here. This sheet shows new and replacement site utilities. Again, some of these utility installations will be taking place within existing paved areas and are and qualify as exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act. If you go down to the next one, the site utilities at this site extend down Doris Drive. And just since this is a new area, I have our resource areas delineated here again, or highlighted. All of these utility installations will be within the paved roadway right-of-way. There are some areas that are within buffer zone and riverfront area that, again, meet that exemption. There are a couple of areas where the 25-foot buffer zone to wetlands and bank slightly overlaps with the limit of disturbance that's shown. We're showing the limit of disturbance here as the full width of the road, but these trenches will be probably about 5 feet wide a piece. So they may or may not actually overlap with the work that is being done, but we did report impacts associated with underground utility installation within that 25-foot buffer zone. It just may or may not overlap, and we are requesting a waiver, you know, in the event that that work does occur within those areas. So if you go down to the impact table for this site, we have no impacts to BLSF as we did in the other site. This time we're working with riverfront area as the direct impacts to resource areas. Other than that, it's again fully buffer zone and setback impacts, as well as rare species habitat. I'll mention that this project is being reviewed concurrently under the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. We expect to have a response from the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program by the end of the month. And we'll report back to you with what they have to say about impacts to wood turtles. We've submitted a wood turtle protection plan for, you know, making sure they're excluded from the site during construction. And that'll involve trainings and the placement of fencing to keep them out of the construction area. So if you all have questions or items to discuss, we are happy to hear them.
Ali, I want to start with your review.
Sure. So I listed the impacts for you guys at the top. They are at about 23% of the riverfront area. So I guess one of my questions would be whether or not there's any proposal to maybe protect or restore a section because of exceeding the 10%. I also was curious, there is a potential vernal pool on the site. I believe it's south of the yellow outlined limit of work here on the slide we're looking at now, but I didn't know distance to that. It roughly looked like about 100 feet outside the footprint, but I wanted to be sure. Again, they're seeking the limited project status, the same one as the other project for expansion of the public water supply well. Same two waiver requests here to exceed 5,000 square feet of impacts, as well as work in the no disturb. We got DEP comments. We also got their written responses. There's a few we could talk through in a minute if you would like. And my only other note is that on this property, we do have a second open order for their retaining wall repair that we handled not that many months ago. So we would just be making an exception to our policy of one order at a time on a property, obviously because this is important water quality work that needs to happen. So I just wanted, I don't know if you guys feel like we need to put that as a finding formally or just have it said in the hearing.
I think as a finding would be good, just so that it's written down.
Okay.
All right. So as far as like, I'll go around. I did have a couple of quick questions. This obviously is a different site. It's a very similar project, but my first question is this building really that much bigger than the other one based on a comparison to the existing building? Because I know that existing building is probably smaller. So I'm just curious the size of this new building compared to the other one we just looked at.
The building's 8 feet longer.
Okay. I mean, it's just when you look at the two compared where it was almost the same size as the building off of East Street, this one, because I think the existing building is smaller, but this proposed building looks much bigger.
Yes, the
So
East
it's-
Street building already treats for iron and manganese. And this
Gotcha.
new proposed site, we are installing new iron and manganese filters. So that's why part of the reason this
All right.
is larger.
So that's why it's more of a discrepancy because of the size of the existing plus that. So as far as like some of the other questions I brought up for the other site, this one doesn't have as much constraint all around it. This is a little different, but I would encourage maybe looking at alternative ways of, taking credit for your gravel areas and what you could take credit for that. Whether that's some roof runoff that's quote unquote clean, whatever you can do. And again, I think I didn't get to the grading plan. The elevation wise, are you having the same kind of challenges with groundwater and the depth to groundwater?
I think we're a little bit better here, but it wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. We're generally trying to maintain the existing topography of the site, which is why the stormwater is located where it is, because in general, the stormwater flows, I'm thinking of the plans right now, if you want to go back to those, it flows from basically the top of the screen down to the bottom of the screen. And so we basically try to maintain that same hydrologic pattern and size the stormwater features to pick up all the impervious coverage we can capture. The roof is getting piped directly into the basin because we don't need to pre-treat it. Similar story with pavement and gravel. We're trying to minimize just what we need out there to get a truck turned around. And so we have a little bit of wiggle room, but not much more on this site as opposed to the East Street site.
Yeah, no, it's just not proximity to what we care about in the wetland resource areas. It's a little bit less. Doesn't mean it's not a constrained site. Okay. I will go around to our commissioners to see if they have any questions. Travis, anything on this one?
No, nothing on this one.
Okay. Jonathan,
Nope, nothing.
Amira,
No questions.
Bill,
Nothing from me.
Okay. So obviously, we understand that you're still responding to DEP, that, some of the design of the stormwater is kind of in progress. And obviously, issues with natural heritage, you're in that process also. Um, so we understand that we will have changes coming. Also, at this time, would like to invite anyone in the public. If you have any comments or question, please feel free to raise your hand, and we will identify you and call on you, and you can actually um, ask questions as you like. In the meantime, we're just going to talk next steps and where we're going from here. Um, So, Leah, anything that I've kind of missed? Do we want to do any kind of waivers now, or do we want to wait till the plan's a little bit more, um, a little bit more advanced?
I would say hold off on the waivers, and I don't have anything that you missed.
Okay. So I go back to the applicant. Obviously, it is up to the applicant to request any kind of continuance, and if you would, you can do that. And if you have any other questions for the commission, we'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, we will request a continuance to your March 4th meeting. At which point we hope to have our MIPA certificate issued, our comments from Natural Heritage, and our final drawings submitted
Okay.
to you all. We understand those additional materials need to be submitted a week in advance.
Just a couple other things, uh, just as a heads up for you. We understand that you're going in front of the planning board. Obviously, it's up to you on how you do your sequencing and timing of it. You know, we'll, you know, it is what it is. It's up to you on how you want to continue our hearings and whether you want to align it with planning board. That's your choice. I'm absolutely fine with it. And then, we do have some standard things that we will request. Obviously, my guess is both of these are more than an acre of disturbance. And does it require a SWIP?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
Tim or Amber, if you have that answer right in front of you, you
And
can jump in.
right.
But
And again, we don't need to know that, other than the fact that we'll request copies of them. We're not reviewing something that's going to EPA. We just want it to have it as, for our records and so forth.
of course.
But those are a couple of heads up. But I think next time it's getting our peer review, any kind of updates, and seeing what other kind of progress you can make in responding to some of DEP's comments. Leah, should we go through DEP's comments for this site?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, that shouldn't take too long, hopefully. And so if you could do the same thing with the DEP comments for this site, that would be great. And then we can kind of move to a continuance.
Sure, and Jan, you may actually have our response letter to DEP for this site, because it was submitted last week. I believe on the 12th.
Is that in your revisions package?
It was the day after that. I believe we got responses to your comments on the 11th and DEP's on the 12th. If not, I can read through them.
Yeah. We're just looking for, a quick go through.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have your response to comments on hand, but I have DEP's comments.
Okay. If you want to just pull those up, I can take care of. Okay, so the first comment was the applicant states that portions of the project qualify as a limited project. The applicant should demonstrate that the project has avoided, minimized, and mitigated impacts to resource areas to the maximum extent practicable. So we described in the alternatives analysis provided in section 4 of the notice of intent that alternative options were considered during the design phase of the proposed project. Those alternatives were based on impacts to wetland resource areas and other resource areas, useful design life, replacements relative to cost and the level of protection required, the project costs, climate adaptation and resiliency, construction considerations, impact on abutters, operation and maintenance, as well as permitting complexity. So the only alternative option that would achieve the project's goals of improving the quality, reliability, and resilience of the district's water supply consisted of the construction of a centralized PFAS water treatment facility at this Worcester Street site. This option would negate the need for a PFAS facility at East Street, but it would result in increased tree clearing, new impervious area, and increased impacts to riverfront area compared with the proposed design due to the larger footprint that would be required for construction of a centralized facility. That alternative option was also deemed infeasible or not preferred for various other reasons as well that are all detailed in the alternatives analysis. Within the existing parcel, the project has been designed to minimize impacts to resource areas to the extent practicable, given the constraints of site topography and the existing infrastructure. So as Tim mentioned earlier, locating the facility further from resource areas would require significant grading and landscape alteration. So we would have to completely change the grading of the site and the water flow within the site. And that would all take place within mapped habitat of rare species. It would additionally increase the distance between the new treatment plant and the existing one, and the well on the site, requiring increased impacts related to underground utility installation. And it would decrease the amount of undeveloped land present within the parcel just by spreading things out more. So the proposed design would concentrate water supply infrastructure within the parcel and utilize the existing cleared areas and access roads to the maximum extent. Finally, as we discussed in section 3 of the notice of intent and further detailed in the stormwater report, impacts are going to be minimized and mitigated utilizing construction period best management practices, post-construction restoration with native vegetation, and the creation of the stormwater management structures that are sized to mitigate all of the new impervious area. Their second comment was the project plans show the FEMA floodplain at an elevation of 309 feet. FEMA mapping shows cross sections with various base flood elevations that bisect the project site. And the applicant should review FEMA mapping and update BLSF designations on the project plan. FEMA mapping shows base flood elevations ranging from 309 feet to 309.6 feet within the project site. A copy of the FEMA Fermet, which illustrates the cross sections and corresponding base flood elevations at and near the project site, is provided as figure 4 in Appendix A of the Notice of Intent. So you have that available for your review. The surveyed land elevations within the project site and surrounding area indicate that all of our work is located above an elevation of 310 feet and therefore entirely out of BLSF, even if you were to consider that higher 309.6 elevation. The applicant states that the installation of underground utilities will qualify for minor project exemptions. The installation of underground utilities within BLSF is not eligible for those exemptions, as they only apply to activities in buffer zone and riverfront area. The underground utility installation activities that are described as meeting exemption criteria under the Wetlands Protection Act are exclusively located at an elevation of approximately 315 feet, which is well above the maximum listed base flood elevation in the area. So there's no concern about having underground utility installation within BLSF at this site. The applicant states that the site is located within the Zone 1 wellhead protection area. Mass Mapper shows that the site is located within a Zone 2 wellhead protection area. Both Zone 1 and Zone 2 wellhead protection areas are considered critical areas pursuant to the Massachusetts stormwater standards. The applicant should review the designations and revise the stormwater checklist and supporting materials to reflect this. Section 3.7 of the Stormwater Report narrative describes the project's compliance with Standard 6 of the Massachusetts Stormwater Standards, given the project's location within a critical area. The project's location within a Zone 1 wellhead protection area is specifically referenced in this section and directs readers to Figure 2 in Appendix B, which shows additional critical areas, including the Zone 2 wellhead protection area surrounding the project site. Additionally, the stormwater checklist provided in Appendix A confirms that the project's location within a critical area under Standard 6 of the form. And finally, given that the stormwater standards for Zone 2 areas are identical to those required for Zone 1 areas, we respectfully propose that compliance with these standards have been established. So happy to discuss any of those in more plain speak. And I can re-forward to you, Jan, if you don't see it in your inbox, so that it can be distributed to the commission as well.
No, appreciate that. I don't really know how you get out of a Zone 1 wellhead protection area when you're doing support for a well. So it is what it is.
Right. I think she was just saying that we should have called out that we were in both Zone 1 and Zone
Yep.
2 more explicitly.
But anyways, I appreciate that. I'm guessing, Jan, no one raised their hand or no one has any questions from the public.
Nothing from the public.
Okay, and the applicant has requested a continuance. At this point, I want to go around really quickly to the commissioners to see if anyone has any questions. So, Amira,
No questions.
thank you. Travis,
Nope, nothing else.
Bill,
No questions.
Jonathan.
No questions.
I also have no further questions. Look forward to seeing some updates. So the next step is, do I have a motion to continue to, I'm sorry, I forget the date. I didn't write it down.
March 4th. I'll move to
Right.
continue the hearing to March 4th for 77 Rear Snow Road and 98 Worcester Street.
Thank you. Second, we got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Amira,
Yes.
and Bill.
Yes.
And I'm also yes, that's a unanimous vote. I think that's it. You know, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to staff. And obviously we'll see you in a few weeks. And we'll go from there. So thank
Excellent.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So,
All right, Leah, what's next?
That's all I have.
That's all you have?
Mm-hmm.
That means there's only one thing. So Bill, you will understand this when we get to this time in the hearing. I'll give you an opportunity. Do you have any questions on what happened tonight? We'd be more than happy to kind of go through the process, what we were doing, and if you have questions, always feel free to reach out to me or to Leah or to Jan. So do you have any questions on how the hearing went tonight?
No, I don't. It was a bit overwhelming.
Yep.
I'll catch up.
Yeah, it takes a while. I mean, I've been in I don't even want to say how long I've been in engineering. I've been at the company I'm with now for 30 years. And I've been going and presenting in front of conservation commissions, planning boards, et cetera, for decades. However, when I got on the commission, it was different. Even though I knew the regulations, I had never administered them before. It was a learning process. So it's a learning process for everyone. And I'm sure if you ask Jonathan how he's kind of picked it up, it's been a process, and now he's got it down pretty well.
Terribly. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Year 5, and I was so Bill, I share in how you feel. I was very overwhelmed at first, and I work in construction. I work with landscaping subs and talk about vernal pools and, on a lot of my projects, because a lot of them are near wetlands or water source or whatever. So it's overwhelming at first, but you definitely start to pick it up, and you pick up the cadence of how it moves, and the staff does a great job of presenting the information and using that Dropbox link to be able to go in and take a look at the plans and start to say, well, what is that? Or how does that work? And Sandy's a wealth of knowledge. So, no question's a bad question. Ask away.
Absolutely not. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you should thank both Leah and Jan, because it makes our lives much, much easier compared to other towns. We're very, very fortunate to have the staff we do and the support we do. It makes a huge difference. If we didn't have them, you wouldn't be seeing me here. That's just the reality of it. So,
Would
all right.
appreciate it if someone could send me the location of the Dropbox. Can't seem to
Oh,
find it.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Leo Jan can do that.
Yep.
I mean, I before earlier this afternoon, I went through all the plans and stuff just to get a sense of what it was. The first thing I look at is Leah's report. That's what gets me to know how much I need to look at things. That then I'll take a look at plans. If you have any questions on what's on plans or anything like that, feel free. There's a bunch of people here that know how to read plans very well. So, and again, there's lots of opportunity for education through MACC, and they have a whole beginner process that they do lunch and learns, where they do spend an hour and talk about a topic. So, and trust me, you'll never learn everything that you need to learn. I mean, all sorts of things come up that it's like, yeah, well, we'll find out, but we don't know. So it's just, you're volunteering and you're trying to do the best you can, and you're contributing to your town. It's your civic duty, and it's all good. So no worries with asking anything. Okay. So did we have a motion to close yet? We didn't.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There we go. There's the experience folks on the commission right there. They know that. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Amira,
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
I am also a yes.